Ready? Aim!
There's too many!
Anyone see my mammoth?
Stumpy! Welcome back. It's another Monday, and I am joined by not one, not two, but three separate human beings. Yes, unlike all the other non-human beings that I normally host. So we have joining us from the US, Dave, over in the bottom right corner there, the bottom left corner. I'm the right. Left and right, who cares? And joining us also from the Netherlands, Joran and Thijs up here. You have to, if you don't know who these guys are, you have to guess which one is which, and I'm not going to say throughout the entire episode. No, I'll let you guys introduce yourselves properly. Dave, coming over from Small Council Radio, how are you doing today?
Doing great. It's weird to have a Monday off. I've worked Mondays for like 10 years. So, but doing well.
Cool. That's what I like to hear. Have you enjoyed the Easter weekend?
It's been hectic. My wife is ready to pop any second. She was due on Thursday, and the baby is being stubborn and does not want to come out.
So, are you saying that if you randomly have to leave this discussion because you suddenly get a phone call saying the baby's here, that?
Oh. Well, we had a doctor's appointment today, and the doctor was like, "Yeah, you're not even like that close." So
Cool.
we're going in sometime this week to have an induction. So
Cool. No, that's awesome. That's great news. And before we move on, you're not the first person to have a child ever, of course. You're not the first person this week who's been like talking about like newborns. I know Tom Tyler's recently had his, I think, third. But yeah, like it just so happens that there's a lot of people in the song community, because you're not the only one. There's like Dwan and people like that as well, who are having children at this time of year. So I don't know if
Yeah.
there's just some, I don't know.
this will be number 5 for us. So
Oh, you have a level of patience of it's unmatchable.
I like to think they're what gives me the patience to paint.
Yes, there it is. Need 5 minutes? I need to paint something. Right.
Yeah.
And moving on to two people, one of which is known for his painting, one of which is known because he hangs around with a guy who paints, and that's Joran and Thijs. For those people who don't know, this one on the side with the black t-shirt, that's Joran, and the one with the green t-shirt, the much sexier, much more appetizing looking man, looking at that windswept hair. That's Thijs up there. So, Joran, Thijs, take us away.
Yeah, Thijs, you want to go first?
Yeah, I think it's a real honor to be here, Mickey.
Mm-hmm.
So we always watch your show. Mostly, we also watch it together and chat with each other about a lot of stuff. Always funny because we always react with the same account to Rotterdam White Scars.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they think I'm Jeroen, and other times Jeroen is typing and they think it's me. So that's always really confusing. But it can be both of us, so that's always cool. Yeah, what did we do? I painted up some. Well, I'm in the mid of changing armies.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
a Stark player, but a bit more towards the Targaryen side. So slowly swapping and painting up some stuff for Targaryens as well, instead of just Starks. So that's what I've been doing this weekend.
Yeah, and then next to the sexy man and over here on my left, for those who are not aware of me, I'm Jeroen. I'm the one that's most of the times on the battle reports on our YouTube channel, the Rotterdam White Scars. Love the painting aspect as well, but also doing quite a lot of gaming. Traveled quite a lot recently as well. So and I've met a lot of the amazing people in our community. So which is always fantastic. And this weekend was lovely though. Finished up finally a few more extra minis for my Baratheon force. That's still not finished, but it's gonna happen this year. And also, looking into a few other new ideas, maybe new journeys in other factions as well. So
Cool.
yeah.
I'm gonna
One
have
thing-
to. I'm gonna have to do a head count here because Thijs, you said Starks, and
Yeah.
then you mentioned like maybe Targaryens.
Yeah,
Starks is an acceptable faction. Targaryens is acceptable, but I haven't got a bloody clue what happens with I have no idea with Targaryens. They're a mess.
well, I'm doing this with this
Ah.
Marcel and Friedman.
Ah. Oh, right. See, yeah. Okay, you're going for the Freedman spam
That's
type.
That's all.
He's been a pretty good boy lately, so I gave him some presents to put it on the painting table.
Yeah.
Good
He's
show.
pushing me non-competitive faction again. So like, here, minis, play with those. Don't buy the others.
Hey, well, I was actually beaten him. So.
So we've got Targs there / Starks. So it's Starks / Targs, really, isn't it? Then we've got Jeroen's on Baratheon. If anyone hasn't seen Jeroen's Baratheons, he mentioned being travelling. He was at LGT last year. He came again over to Always Winter this year. So I've had the pleasure of meeting Jeroen a couple of times face to face, including playing against him over the tabletop as well as online, of course, at various times during lockdown.
Yeah.
Very great guy.
The Invitational as well, right?
Yeah,
Nicky,
it was the Invitational. Yeah.
So was quite surprising as well, but truly a lovely game. And further, I've also already been to in Helsinki for the Finnish GT this year as well.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
A few more GTs hopefully coming up this year. And we'll definitely see more over in the UK for sure.
Brilliant. That's what I like to hear. And so finally, Dave, I have to admit, I am woefully uneducated in your favourite faction to play. So tell me the story of your favourite faction to play. Tell me why Thijs and Jeroen are wrong, or maybe right, and tell me what's your kind of next thing on the agenda, I guess.
Favorite faction to play? I would say it's really close between Martells and Greyjoys. Martells, though, I don't know, they gave me a headache after playing a whole day of, like a tournament. After the end, I just feel mentally exhausted. So I would say it just depends. What's my favorite to play after everything's said and done? Probably Greyjoys. But I'm ever since the game dropped back, what was it, 2018, or late 2018. I've wanted Martells. That's what I've been waiting for, regardless of the rumors. My favorite character in both the show and the books is the Red Viper. And to this day, I have not played a single game without him in some form, whether it be his NCU, his attachment, or commander. And that was kind of what I had said when it first dropped, was he'll be in my list in some form, no matter what, even if it's a detriment to me. So yeah, one of them too. I kind of started off as Starks. They were kind of more of my play style, and that's how I kind of went into Greyjoys eventually. A lot of the factions that I would have started, for example, after Starks, I almost went to Baratheons. I played like for a month or two, and then we had like 5 Baratheon players. I'm like, okay, time to put them on the shelf, even though they were half painted. And then that's when I picked up the Greyjoys. And then from Greyjoys, I've kind of hopped around a bit, but I play a little bit of everything as far as, especially like my local tournaments. I usually will purposely just bring a faction that isn't represented to just add like diversity to the roster. I'll just be like, oh, no one's running free. Well, Free Folk's the easy one to bring because oddly enough, out of like 30 people, no one plays Free Folk.
This is a crime. You need more correct people in your local area.
Yeah, I guess. It's funny because I have like a huge box of prize support that is just my personal stuff I bring, and it's like 50% Free Folk because no one takes it.
I am disappointed. So there's 2 things there. There's 2 things there and I know chat chat pointed out, Desmond in chat said the Red Viper, Oberyn Martell, objectively the correct favourite character. You're on Thijs. Thumbs up, thumbs down for Oberyn. Oh wow, this wasn't an immediate thumbs up. Wow, they have to think about this? It's got to be an immediate thumbs up for me. I don't know how you guys have to think about this one.
When you're from the north, the south is pretty distance away, right?
Yeah. I was also mentioning. I'm like, north.
If you go south enough, you hit the north, right? You know.
Yeah, but it didn't go well in the north there, so yeah.
Big brain.
I think for Martell's, it's probably one of the coolest characters with the most flavor. I think, and also he's on the far edge of the spectrum when it comes to George Martin and his characters.
Mm-hmm.
So, not including everything that was in the history books and everything. In Game of Thrones, he was one of the more extremely molded characters. So that's why you have to choose favorite, more spoken out characters. So end of the book.
Definitely. Yeah, no, he's for the limited time that he's in the books, he's incredibly well fleshed out, right? And then in the show, obviously Pedro Pascal was a superb choice because look at what Pedro's gone on to do since then, right? Absolutely superb actor. But yeah, like fantastic character, fantastic lore about him. And yeah, I think I don't blame you, Dave. I would not blame you having Oberyn in everything because I think outside of Darkstar, I think Oberyn is probably one of the most favoured characters ever to be created by George R.R. Martin. So yeah, good shout there. The second thing is the fact that there's no free folk players. It still makes me angry and sad. You know, that actually I'll say this: any faction that hasn't got a representative in its local area, at least somewhat, I always find sad because you want to feel like any faction or every faction gets represented, even neutrals. Even neutral. I mean, neutrals are shit, but even neutrals.
Well, we do actually have one person that's going to be getting into them. He's already bought like 3 unit boxes, but he doesn't like have enough to do a force that, and he wants to wait until they're painted to put them on the table once he finally gets everything. But we will eventually have one person that's pretty dedicated. Whereas me, I like free folk a lot. They're pretty high up there. I'd say they're, now that Martells are out, they're probably like 4th in line. But before Martells, the new faction, it was like Greyjoys, and I actually like Lannisters a lot, even though I don't play them a ton. And then free folk. But because free folk have kind of changed a bit, and the lack of representation for them, they're kind of on my like to finish painting list. I actually have 36 savages sitting next to me, as well as 2 units of spearwives. So I'm hoping to have all 36 done by today.
Oh wow, the idea of painting 36 models in a year is pretty impressive for me. So
well, my paint scheme is actually I don't know. I think of it as like a cheat. It's basically all contrast paints. But then I hit it with a white dry brush to give it a frosted look, like as if they're like super cold and like just frosted up from being outside so long. And it looks awesome, but it's there's very little effort, I would say, compared to like my other factions. Like my was that I brought Free Folk to Gen Con last year, and I painted my entire I think it was like 60 points if you add the 2 lists together. I painted it all in 5 days.
Jesus.
That's how quick the paint scheme is, and comes out looking awesome. Whereas like my Greyjoys, I'd be lucky in those 5 days to have 2 units done with my paint scheme for my Greyjoys.
Oh wow. I mean, that's still nuts.
How do you? I mean, like, I'm known for being a fast painter, also with a semi decent quality. But the thing is, you spend more time in basing them, like making because the base is then the biggest surface you have to paint, or you can. What I always do with horde armies, I just do a lot with the basing stuff. more effort in the basing, because then the entire army is set on a prettier surface. Also, kind of justifies the quick paint job.
Yeah, my bases, I would say, for my free folk in particular, take about a third of the total time. But that's, I would say though, I do definitely have harder bases, like my Night's Watch, which I've only painted 2 models because I don't know. Night's Watch is one of those factions I like never play, but I always all of my models in my entire collection, because I own every faction and at least 2 units, if not 3 or 4 of every single unit. At minimum, I prime them, magnetize them, and all of their trays, maybe not their bases, are all completely based. I already know the basing of every faction I have whenever I eventually get to that faction.
Yeah, I was just noticing on some of the stuff you sent me prior to the show, and actually, like, the basing is very consistent, but also, like, without sounding negative, simplistic, right? It's something that you can put together and you know that's what's going to work for that faction. And actually, like, a lot of people say like the model quality and things matters, but actually, like, with a good solid base that works well, that's consistent, you can make anything look pretty good. So yeah, like, obviously when Thijs was asking about the basing, and there you go, there's the evidence. Thijs, what do you reckon to that?
Yeah, I think this is exactly what I mean. Just a little bit more effort in the basing to make like the framing of a painting, like you have a painting without framing, it doesn't look anything like a same painting with framing. That's the big difference here. It looks really awesome. Yeah.
There you go. Some positive feedback there. We've got more than just free folk, and we will see the other half of what he's got to show us later on, as well as some more stuff from Thijs as well. You mentioned contrast paints. For those of you who don't use them, and I'm not an amazing painter, but I do recommend contrast paints. They do make the slap chop methods and the kind of like more modern methods of painting just quickly really effective and easy to do. So do recommend using those. Right. We will get into some more painting stuff in due course, but we have got one big thing to talk about, and it is not our friendly neighbourhood painting, our friendly neighbourhood this, that and the other. There was an FAQ drop last week, and I say there was an FAQ drop. I should probably reword that. There were some FAQs dropped last week. Last week, I can't remember what day it was. I'll be super honest. I've stopped trying to pay attention to days. There was an FAQ drop, and it was version 4.4. I'm not going to read through the whole FAQ. It's available. You guys can go and search it up. Right. Link, if need be, is in chat. The FAQ had in it a couple of, should we say, controversial changes. Okay. Most of them were positive. Most of them very positive, and most people like them. Most people like the changes. The problem is it did introduce a couple of things which were a bit odd. Mainly, 4.4 introduced that you drew cards after setting up the board, which is before deployment. So there were a couple of games in this last week where people were drawing cards before they'd even put any models on the board, which was weird for a lot of Song players, I think. Very different. And then Masande was before you drew. So before you'd even put a model on the board, you'd have to do Masande and then draw and then start deploying. They fixed that in the second version. They fixed it. They fixed Brigands the first time by making the when you do the damage for the panic check, they did that check was specifically at the timing before or after defense dice are rolled. The problem being is that the step after defense dice are rolled is take wounds. So it made no change to Brigands, and it did not actually fix Brigands at all. You'll be glad to know they went back and they fixed Brigands in the second revision. But a couple of other things were present. Now, I have a list. I made a change log of all of the changes between 2021 Season 1 FAQ and the Season 2 FAQ. Shared that amongst various people. Some of the changes positive and just clarified things we already knew, like measuring distances from any part of the base. If you're in short ranges, any part of the base, range is still measured for range attacks from the arrow. But a couple of other changes which perhaps were a little bit catching people unawares. The first one I wanted to bring up, perhaps because there is no confusing this, really, there's no second nature to this. It really is just what it says on the tin. Scorpions now do 2 wounds to dragons and giants for each hit they generate. Roll 2 dice, get 2 hits, that's 4 wounds. What do we think about that? Anyone want to take us first into their thoughts around bolt throwers now finally countering giants and dragons? Kind of. But 5 Mayflesh dragons. Go on, Joran. You're desperate to say something.
Yeah, I'm really thinking over it, to be fair. Most of the heavier things like dragons, mammoths, giants and everything, you don't encounter them that much here in the Netherlands because we have like a bit more of a casual group. So if you see the dragons or anything, then you don't see the scorpion on the table. But yeah, from at least the last few visits I did to GTs and everything, I think personally this is actually something good because the Night's Watch, I think it was already last year at the GT in London that a lot of people brought in their Night's Watch list or one of their lists a siege engine. I think most of them were the bolt thrower and what. And well, you want to counter most of the times the cavalry. Most of the cases even champs of the stack because those were horrible to beat or anything like it. But seeing them now being used to counter like the giants, mammoths, because they have got a huge increase, of course, due to the last changes of Season 2. And dragons, because they, of course, had the same as well. You see them now also quite a lot more on the table, which I think is really cool, though, because I think in the first season they didn't see any play whatsoever, or less play than most of the other stuff. So this only makes sense, you know. You have like a really good big metal arrow coming towards you, and what if that pierces like a dragon or a giant or anything other big, can easily do 2 wounds. So yeah, I'm agreeing with it.
Okay, cool. Positive from Joran. Dave, what do you reckon?
Well, I think it's a good change. Though, I mean, I don't know. Anyone that's listened to Small Council Radio knows I can't stand Night's Watch. I have a burning hatred for Night's Watch. Always have since they came out. So I would say, like, in a vacuum, just looking at this one unit, it's a good change. I think, I think it's doing what it always was intended to do, and that's great. I don't think Night's Watch necessarily needs it with some of the power tools that they have at the moment, but that's just my opinion on it. So it's one of the situations that I think that they get a buff here, but I don't know if they necessarily need a buff. But
yeah,
that's just my own personal experience. I'm sure everyone kind of has their own opinion on Night's Watch and their strength and how good they are at the moment.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because none of the players on this particular chat do play Night's Watch, so I imagine a lot of people here are sat being like, "Yeah, them hunters, man, them hunters, them hunters in Vanguard." Thijs, you're looking to move into Targaryens. Have you considered picking up dragons and using dragons?
Well, actually, dragons are really unavailable as a product.
Oh wow!
Here in the Netherlands, but I was on holiday in Gran Canaria in the Canary Islands last week. I found a little shop in the mountains that sold the dragons. So for 29 euros, So that's like 24 pounds, I think.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I'm starting Targaryen, so why not pick it up? But mainly for painting. I the thing what drew me to was actually my master plan is do a full non-metallic metal Targaryen army,
Okay.
and then I want to have the silver or the metallic unsullied, and the brass copper Brazen Brothers, and then the Golden Company gold metallic metals, all the non-metallic metals.
That sounds awesome.
I think that's the thing that drew me the most, is the painting aspect to Targaryen, because that's the coolest thing, right? So you have like all units that match up with their colors, because unsullied are always with that steel stuff, and Brazen Brothers, which are brass, and then you have the Golden Company. So that's all my head. That was like one whirlpool of thoughts going towards Targaryen, to be honest.
I love it. I love that, and it's odd because obviously everyone's different, but I love this idea, and it reminds me a lot of Luke Hartman and what he's been doing with his Targaryens. Right? Is he had an idea of how he wants to make it look, and that's why he's gone for it, and that's what he's doing with it, and that's what he's pursuing. So from a hobby perspective, rather than a gameplay perspective, is the drive, which I think is fantastic. And I know that Carlo, when Carlo talks about his Lannisters, one of the few things he didn't like running Lannisters in the way they looked when it was just unthematic, when it was like, here's a couple of Lannister units, and then like some poor fellows. It just felt disjointed. Whereas now it's like he can feel the full Lannister force, and it's all Lannisters, it's all red and gold and plumage, and it's like, yeah, this is my Lannister force, and then and paint them up to suit that style as well. And I have to admit, I have a lot of respect for people who come for it that angle, and have that consistency in their list, kind of like look and feel. And it kind of comes back onto what Dave was saying before about his basing. And what we were discussing with the basing in terms of look and the feel that creates, and then the ability to sit and, mash out 36 cave dwellers, which no one in their right mind should ever have to do.
I do think that there's like sometimes you encounter issues that, like, for gameplay things get better, for thematic reasons stuff don't get better. I think that's what with Targaryens now. I've been reading up the tactics for Targaryens, of course, because about how the army plays and stuff. Now there's a lot of players taking just 1 or 2 dragons, and thematically that just sucks because you have the full-blown 3 dragons, right?
Yeah.
So, but it might be better for gameplay. Like, oh yeah, it's better than facing 3 dragons and Mother of Dragons. That really sucks. Yeah, but that was, although Mother of Dragons was like an issue, it was still really cool to see on the table.
It was.
It's the thing you expect from Dany, to have the full-blown dragons, and there's no reason why she would take 1. I might get into that because he has one that flies away, or that scouts or whatever, but it's most of the time just Viserion that's not being picked up, so that's also like, that's not a dragon, that's and I think having 3 dragons is better than having meta right now that you have 1 or 2 dragons. Just for thematic reasons.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's interesting. It's very interesting because I think Mother of Dragons is a very thematic. It's interesting because I think it's something that's been flirted around with, and I know that Dave, I think one of your episodes of Small Council Radio did touch on this previously, and we certainly have here as well. Thematic list building in the game, and then also being able to have rules which is very similar to MCP's kind of like encounter. Do they call it an encounter? I think they call it. But basically, you would put Mother of Dragons on the field with her 3 dragons, and that would be the army that you face, right? And then you face it as maybe 1 or 2 players and have as like a thematic battle, with the whole intention being, yeah, that this list is pretty damn good. You can't beat it alone. I know that was something that you guys had briefly discussed, or certainly mentioned on Small Council Radio, the idea of these kind of like thematic battles or encounters and stuff. I don't know if you had any more thoughts on that, Dave. It might have been a while ago since that episode, actually, but
Yeah, I think that one's been a bit.
Mhm.
But yeah, even just any way to get certain models on the table that you wouldn't normally see, whether or not it's because they're too good or not good enough. You can always, I think sometimes we get sucked into this, 40 points uh, gameplay where it's like 40 points every game all the time, playing just the basic rules and the basic missions that go to a lot of other games. I'll go to the one that most people know, but Warhammer 40K. You know, yes, most of the time people are playing 2,000 points, but see people play 1,000, 1,500 points a lot too.
Mhm.
But you don't see people playing 30-point, 50-point games or like special game modes. Every now and then you'll hear like a person play it and they'll post like on the chat somewhere, either Facebook or something. But I could tell you personally, I don't know the last time I'd ever seen a game played of Ice and Fire that wasn't just your straight up 40 points um, out of the just one of the 9, 10 missions, however many missions there are.
I remember 9, I think, isn't it? Yeah.
So I think branching off occasionally to do something like that. That's why, like with Adepticon, I signed up for all 4 days,
Mhm.
and I had a blast because the first day was who's the boss. You got a random commander every round to lead your 40-point force. Friday was a team tournament where you and your teammate had 25-point armies and you could flex a point, so you could be 24 or 26. That was awesome. And then Sunday was another team event, but it was 20 points, and your partner was a different person every round.
Okay.
Not only that, though, like they got everyone into a pool of experienced players and casual players or new players. And so the new players were always paired up with an experienced player. And so the best experienced player, let's say round 1, would then round 2 be paired with the least performing casual player. Uh, so that, again, that was just, I had a blast that day too.
Mhm.
It adds a little extra flavor. And it doesn't, even though it's, quote unquote, a tournament, it doesn't feel like as much is on the line. So you feel like you don't have to, go all out with absolute best thing you can think of. You can kind of experiment, and then at the end of the day, you go, okay, cool, I still had some fun.
Mhm.
You have to admit that our community on 40-point games every week.
That's awesome.
30-point games for introduction to players. Actually, to be honest, we are quite struggling in the Netherlands to find new players because we have one store, flag store, that supplies the game and has issues with getting the stock in and doesn't get the 40 ones from Netherlands Asmodee. So that's not the German or the UK, but we have the Dutch version of the Asmodee branch as well. That's different than other. But that really doesn't help because the product is really hard to get at the moment from local stores. There isn't any storefront that supplies the game. We have to do it as a community ourselves. So we organize 30-point games. That's a starter box, and then you can start with a starter box and only use the miniatures from the starter box, so people can like try it and then buy the box and have the same army they tried the game with.
Mhm.
And also one of our community members is really active on Discord, Magyarko.
Oh my god, yes, yes.
He's really fanatic in bringing in new players, and he also made a custom doubles scenario. So that's mainly built so that new players can be combined with a veteran player to the game.
Mhm.
And that's being played a lot in the center of the Netherlands at the moment. So every week or every
every week he's currently playing with the group there. Yeah.
So, but that's just also out of necessity for us to grow the community without having good flags, flag store at the moment.
Yeah,
That's cool.
we're playing then, I think, once every 2 weeks at our local flagship store right now. And then we've got like 6 players. 4 of them are playing the regular game, and then me and someone else. Most of the times, it is one of the guys working in the shop or anything, doing them the introduction games because they see the miniatures and they're like, whoa, wow, this is something else. Or, hey, this reminds me of, let's say, Warhammer Fantasy, for example. And then we're just like, hey, we've got a few cool starter boxes over here. So we've got most factions laying there. You want to try it out? Yeah? Well, let's go over it. And then mostly play Fire and Blood or Game of Thrones, or the not really tough ones somewhat, that you can also easily play in like half an hour or an hour, which also really helps. So, yeah.
I really like the idea of 2v2 introductory games. I know that that's obviously not the vast majority of the games that I play myself, but actually, little known fact, the first game I ever played was with Carlo, Dan, and another one of our guys down at the club, which was a 2v2. I played a 2v2 as my first game. I'd seen Carlo and Dan played a couple of times against each other, like the old classic Lannisters versus Starks. And yeah, we played a 2v2, and I honestly can't remember what we did. I think we played Starks on both sides because that's what we had enough for, and there was like Lannisters, and I think there was I think John had his Night's Watch back then, I think. So it was Night's Watch and Starks versus Starks and Lannisters. And that was, I remember that game. I don't really remember the outcome. I don't really remember that many cool things happening, but I vaguely remember some Outriders getting some kills or something. Stark Outriders, because they were great back then. And yeah, I remember enjoying it, and enough to warrant wanting to go and buy my own faction. And then the next faction that was out was Free Folk. No one else had it, so it was like, right, well, I'll buy Free Folk. And that really was the start of my love for not just Free Folk, but the game as a whole. And you know, it's not through some other nefarious plot, by the way, guys. I'm just a Free Folk player because that was the faction that was coming out that no one else owned. So that's what we did. We typically do in our playgroup is one person will buy a faction, then someone else will buy a different one, and we try not to double up if we can. And then Carlo goes and buys everything anyway if he loves it. So.
It's also out to last week's episode because Carlo mentioned that he will probably never. I'm not sure where he mentioned it because I also listen to a lot of podcasts in the plane from Gran Canaria. But Carlo mentioned that he did not see doubles as a feature on the website anytime soon. But it is something that might actually help grow the community, right? So this might be a little shout out to Carlo to invest a little bit more than he mentioned.
If you know nothing about Carlo now, the idea of doing things that people want, oh god, no, that's so low down the list. But it is interesting you mention it. I mean, I can't pretend to talk about the system and the mathematics behind what Carlo wants to do, but I can imagine that Carlo partially wouldn't want to do it because it would be very complicated to use people's current ELO. So a lot of systems, when they do things like that, like doubles, best one to use off the top of my head is Age of Empires and their ELO system that they use. They have an independent ranking for team events and for team stuff because it is a very different scenario. And then you wonder the difference between like a 2v2 is different to a 2v2 where you can use different commanders and factions, and there's different mixing it up. And even the 2 events that Dave was mentioning before at Adepticon, the 20 points per, or the 25 or 26, 24 is like actually very conceptually very different things. But yeah, no, it's definitely something that could be interesting in the future. But yeah,
But you would probably have to have like an official game mode system for 2v2 as well to make it worth bringing it into an ELO stat kind of position, because then you would have to have 2 versus 2 official game modes and also official rulings how to partner up and how to
deal with tactics cards, tactics decks, tactics. Yeah. Does that whet your appetite, Dave, as a future thing?
Definitely. I think the more non-40 point standard games that are played out there, the better. Especially if there's some way to incorporate, even if it was just its own section and stats, because I know that can possibly skew like the stats as is if we started like throwing in games that weren't what 99.9% of the games I'm sure are in stats. If we started doing like 30 point, 50 point, or even just like other things and somehow throwing it in there. But
Still be worthwhile. More different games are good. And I think this is a good time, seeing as we're talking about creators and communities and things like that. I mentioned him before, but I'll mention him again. I don't have the link handy with me, so if anyone else knows it and wants to drop it in chat, by all means, do so. But Shane from Boardman Gaming, and all the various different scenarios that he does, and I know that that the French were doing some battle reports of some of those scenarios. So if you do want to check them out, check out Laboratio, who are doing the battle reports, and Boardman Gaming. If you type that into Google, you'll probably find Shane's website, and he's got tons of different stuff out there. But yeah, on the note of scenarios, and certainly like different scenarios, and you know, thematic as well. All right then, back to the FAQ. And I'm going to sideline it a little bit straight away from the FAQ after coming back to the FAQ. The FAQ does deal with a couple of other things, such as, Oberyn's Manticore Venom no longer has to be used on the first unit attacked. Dave will probably definitely be happy about that. Getting to actual poison things he wants to poison, rather than just, oh, a wolf ran at me. Damn. That was a pretty bad, feels bad. Anything else that really caught my eye that was pretty big? Yes. Kind of a good thing. They finally added the quickfire ruling back. We were talking about Night's Watch before. The quickfire ruling that existed a long time ago in 1.6 that was then, for some reason, removed in 2021 has now been added back in. Which we all played this way anyway, but I'm glad it's back in the FAQ. The pivot happens before the shot from quickfire on the retreat. So yeah, a much needed thing that needed to be in there. Alas, it wasn't. They also said outflank is only one per round, which is I think again something that a lot of people knew already but wanted to confirm. And the other thing that is quite funny in the FAQ is they do reference that 2 units with Relentless can just hit each other until one of them is destroyed. Like, that is an actual thing that they've said in the FAQ. Just bash each over the head until one person dies. There is another little thing, though. And this is a very annoying way of them writing rules. So, this does take me on to the next part of where this conversation is going. They ruled Overwatch. Now, most people here probably think, why they didn't need to rule Overwatch, right? Well, they did. And they came up with this fantastic writing of a rule. If an enemy unit ends a move in long range of a friendly unit with Overwatch, but the friendly unit only has a short range attack, can they perform their ranged attack? The answer is no. Now, for most people, we probably understand the intent here. Yes, if you end 12 inches away from a unit that has a short range attack, they can't just shoot you at 12-inch range when they've only got 6-inch range, right? The problem is, that's not what this says. This says if you end a move within long range of an enemy unit with Overwatch, and it only has a short range attack, and wants to perform Overwatch, it can't. This ruling actually says Overwatch doesn't work at all on short range units, which is really stupid. Like, obviously, this cannot be correct. Nobody in the right mind is looking at this going, that's really dumb. Yeah, that's a ruling. That's a thing. Now, this takes me on to a much wider point. Less so about genuinely looking at rules and picking them apart, because that's not really the point. We got to talk about the positives, right? The positives is they're looking at it. The positives is they are resolving questions and queries, like Doran Martell. If he loses abilities, he doesn't score at the end of the round. That's been resolved, and that was something that came up at Always Winter as a rules query. They've gone some way into resolving a lot of the questions that people had. They haven't necessarily fixed them all, and some of them they've made more questions than they've answered. So, in that regard, what has basically been discussed a lot has finally happened. And that is that people wanted, people were suggesting, or people thought it would be pressing to release a community FAQ. And as a result, there has been a group of individuals who have been working on a community FAQ. So I'll just make this a little bit bigger for you guys and zoom straight in on this. So this is not going to be out anytime soon or anytime recently, but there is now in the works the idea being a community FAQ. Now, there's been a mixture of TOs involved in this. We've got TOs from the US, we've got TOs from Europe, be that Germany, France, the UK. I think that covers most of it, I think, at the moment.
And you added the wrong one, because you had to add...
I should add Joran, yeah, I added Thijs, not Joran. The Netherlands. I think we're looking to get one of the Italian guys in as well. We've also got Spanish as well involved. The idea being, this community FAQ is going to be put together not with any other intent than being a support document, right? It's not here to lay out the rules and say you must play this way, right? It's there as a document that goes, how do I play this rule? And then the document says, well, here's your arguments for playing it this way. Here's your arguments for playing it this way. As a group of TOs, this is what we would suggest, right? By all means, this is not being pushed on the community as being, you must play this way. You must follow what's in this document. It's trying to just collate everything together and say, this is how we believe it's the rightest way to play this thing, or the most logical way to play this thing. And the idea being is that it creates a document that nationals or GTs or regionals or any online events that are being run can follow this kind of document and just say, yep, we're following this document on these things. And a TO can still step up and say, but I disagree with, let's say, the ruling on, I'll make one up, Overwatch. I disagree with the ruling on Overwatch. And they can just then say, I want to play it this way, right? Providing this document to players, I think, is just going to be so much more helpful. And, you know, it's not official. It's just a completely advisory support document there. But this has been popular in the past from the LGT. So just formalizing that a lot more, having a consistent document. And then if you go to the Netherlands and play in an event over there, Joran can say, yep, we're following this document. But if you play in the UK and one of the GTs over here, we're also following this document. And it just makes things way easier for the vast majority of rulings. The big kind of like position we're trying to move into as well, of course, is TOs in frontline gaming events over in the US, also following these kind of documents. 2 or 3 of them are already signed up to it and basically said, yep, sounds good to me, we'll do that. Which of course obviously then means potentially nationals in the US, should they wish to use it, has the opportunity to. Can't imagine that they will, given that that's probably the only actual CMON run event of the calendar, but the option is there. The idea being, I mean, I'm actually against a community FAQ, right? I don't think a community FAQ personally is something that we should have to do, but at this point I think it's something that is useful. Arguably it's been useful before, but I think we were waiting on this FAQ to try and resolve it. So yeah, rulings will be added to this. This document is actually quite thin on the ground because not many of the rulings have been 100% confirmed yet, but just an example, I started writing this out earlier. Copying orders uses very basic ruling there, okay, as a starting point. But there is going to be a Discord, and there is a Discord set up for these discussions to take place with TOs from across the world. And it's not... I have put myself in the position where I'm managing it currently, but I will hasten to add that I am not making rulings here myself, right? I am not involved in the making of these rulings. I'm purely putting myself in this position because I happen to know most of the TOs from these events. I am not that interested in making rulings myself. I am literally just there to go, right, what have you guys decided? This is it. Are you happy with this text? Bang. In that goes. The reason being, utmost importance here is that I am not the kind of person who wants to make rulings myself, really. I'm not a TO. You know, that's not what I do. I've never done that. People like Joran, though. People like Dave over here. This one. I can point that way as well, but there's no one over there. Dave over here. These are the kind of people who do run events. They do have to make rulings. So I think this is the people it supports. Now, someone says there it only serves to split the player base. I agree that it can split the player base. But this is where I think that there is a significant difference between this and what we used to see with an ETC style format, being that this is purely a document of advisory steps. And this is where the difference lies, is I think a lot of FAQs will say this is the reasoning, whereas this FAQ is going to present both sides of the discussion. This is why it isn't, this is why it is, we recommend X, Y, or Z. And that's the difference, is that you can read this document and you can still make your own decisions as a TO based on what is being presented to you. But the evidence being presented to you is the evidence from the rulebook, the evidence from the rules as written, and the FAQs and the various individuals who are involved with these discussions. Now, some discussions, very deep, as I'm sure some of the guys here have seen. Some of the other discussions are incredibly thin, and it's like, oh yeah, everyone agrees that this is probably the way it should be, such as the Overwatch one, right? Overwatch hasn't come up just yet, but everyone pretty much agreed that the recent FAQ probably screwed that one up. So, just gives an idea. It gives you an idea as to kind of what's coming down the pipeline. Have you guys, I know you guys are somewhat involved with this, somewhat fringe involved with this kind of stuff already. Any thoughts, opinions, ideas from yourselves? Oh.
Dave's muted.
You muted yourself, Dave.
Yep, sorry.
It's okay.
Thoughts and opinions on like the FAQ, like the community FAQ.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. Only like you said, I'd much rather just have an FAQ from coming down from CMON, because it's at that point it's from the company. It's you know whenever you have an FAQ that's straight from the creator, you can't really dispute it in a sense, as long as it doesn't contradict like other things that they've put out. So yes, in a perfect world, I'd much rather just have an all-encompassing FAQ from CMON that we can just look to, and there's no arguments. You can not like the ruling, but it's there. But because there's a lot of things that there are no clear answers to that are up for debate at this point, I think it's best to have a community resource that gives, like you're saying, exactly what the document is for, to give some FAQ options that TOs can decide upon. Because, I mean, I've said this kind of on my own show, but I may have an opinion on how something should be played, and if it's ruled the other way, Yeah, that kind of sucks, but I'll just adapt to it as long as I know ahead of time that it's not like sprung on me at the last second, and then I'll feel kind of cheated. But if I know I'm going to a tournament and way ahead of time I know it's being ruled a way that I may not agree with, I'll just factor it into my strategy. Now I understand not a lot of people or not everyone can overcome certain rulings if they only play one, maybe two factions. I'm fortunate enough that I play all of them, some more than others, so it doesn't affect me as much. But for me, it's just about fairness in the sense that it's coming from someone that's impartial. It's coming from straight from the TO that isn't being influenced by a player to get an advantage in any way, and it's well known way ahead of time.
Yeah. Thijs, Jeroen, I know that Thijs, you've obviously been involved with this process so far yourself, and Jeroen will be.
Well, let me. Although I'm not really competitive in this game, I am extremely competitive in other games, mainly Middle-earth strategy battle games.
Mhm.
And we also run the national qualifier for that, and we also go to the World Championship. Actually, also. So from competitive gaming side, I know what kind of arguments you can expect from a competitive game. And I think the most important thing that this document should provide, and I think maybe should be highlighted a little bit more, is that you have a pre-made discussion. So you have pros and the cons of a set argument, because most of the time it's not necessarily the outcome of the argument, but it's the whole discussion before the argument is settled. And by having these somewhat complicated issues at hand, and you already have the entire argumentation written in this document, helps TOs come to a final conclusion way faster on a tournament and smoothen out gameplay, whether it's A or B as a result, it doesn't really matter. It's smoothen out the entire discussion you have before you come either option A or B. And I think that should be a little bit more prevalent. So that's also a bit of feedback. So that really helps. If you have more focus and a community FAQ on that part, it helps TOs more in smoothlining games, and because time will be a factor. And if you have a discussion of 10-15 minutes, that can not necessarily change the outcome of the discussion, but can change the outcome of the game that is being played. And I think that's far more valuable than to make sure that doesn't happen, that it influences the outcome of the game instead of the outcome of a simple thing, like a simple combat or a simple attack or a simple strike. The effect of not having this is way more impactful on the game than people think the impact of this document will be, I think.
Okay. Jeroen, as a TO yourself, rules guy.
Yeah, I'm actually also one that's standing behind this, but that's also due to the fact, like what Thijs just said, we also are competitive players in other games, somewhat, mostly Middle-earth indeed from GW. And to be funny, actually their community also made like a community FAQ, and I think this is also something that really helps out showcasing the other side as well, that this community is also like a really good and amazing community, as how I see them online or on tournaments and everything as well, because together we're making the game better in a way. And I think 75%, 80% will agree with us, 20% won't agree with us. But at some point, and that was with Middle-earth at that time as well, there were a lot of rules not going well, etc. And then there were like especially the bigger GTs and everything, the community FAQ came in, and well, they saw at one point they saw that, and they started to adjust the FAQ that been brought out by the Middle-earth team once every half year, and at some point FAQ disappeared, however, because GW was doing it with the team. And I think this can also happen with the Song and Ice and Fire community. Again, I think we've got a lot of people. I've not seen the entire team, but seeing it from an international view and standing point, seeing it on different servers and everything. And I think we can only become better as an whole community with it. And indeed, as Thijs said as well, it helps, especially for TOs that want to TO but don't experience. Maybe I'll talk against a competitive player that knows all the rules, and he says like it should be this. It gives them some sort of boost, maybe TO as well, because they've got like this document, and they can indeed, as you said as well, Mickey, and Dave pointed out a bit as well, you can still adjust it a little bit as well, but it helps. And I think it will also clears up most of the discussions so that you don't indeed lose time, like 10 or 15 minutes, about one discussion point out, especially in the bigger games. So this is something from my own experience as well. The first time I went to the LGT and everything, I encountered like a few rules that I played differently in my own worst case, and I was actually pointed out by one of the players, like, hey guys, or Jeroen, this is not how we play it. I think you should play it like this. And that's also, I think, a bit what Dave said as well. Like every time, if you go to a tournament, always check what everyone is putting on, or special rules or anything like it, or an FAQ about certain matters. And from that point on, always adjust yourself so that you never can feel any disappointments whatsoever. Because if you prepare on that, in my case, then at the point at the LGT, I was like, oh, it's that. No, actually it isn't, because it was to the last. I could actually use it multiple times, and I was like, oh, I killed one, so I'm actually dead. Then my opponent said like, no, you can actually use both of them if you wanted to. And that is also, I think, the strength of it. Also, all the feedback that we get on our videos and everything, I always try to implement the best scenario possible. So it was kind of funny with the outflank as well. I ruled the outflank how the outflank is now actually ruled by Comedy or not in the FAQ, because it made the most sense. And truly, I agree with what Dave says. If Comedy or not brings doubt, fantastic. But if not, these kind of documents can really help us getting to that next level. And not only for CEOs, I think for the community. So, yeah.
I think, the other thing, and this is woefully pipe dream at this point, because we saw it with the FAQ from the LGT. But if something is given the light of day, then it's likely that CMON will see it. They might choose to ignore it, and that's fine. I don't care if they do. But the point being is that if it allows to see a much wider scope of these are the people who have got these queries, and these are probably why these queries and questions are coming up. A lot of people say, how do we get feedback to CMON? How do we know what's being asked? How often do we see these questions risen? But actually, most of these questions come up from literally just discussions, and they're not about posting them on a forum or going to Facebook and asking questions. It's people on Discords or people in games asking these questions regularly, and it's us having to make these rulings. How many times realistically has the ruling on to the last, for example, come up? I couldn't count the number of times I've seen the to last question come up. It's been hundreds of times, and it wasn't in the most recent FAQ, which is like, come on guys, this has got to be one of the most frequently asked questions in the game. So yeah.
To be fair with that, Mickey, the one with the King's Blade, that one was also like, for me, like, okay, is this actually possible? How, what? And that one is, I think, well, I'm an okay Baratheon player, if I may say so. One of those was actually kind of a surprise for me, and I think even at one point doing battle reports with other players here, I even said to myself, like, hey, listen, I don't think you can play Sustain Assault before the King's Blade ability and then also plays Hours the Fury, but I think it's the same. I had it actually last week with the triggering of Baratheon Justice and Sentinel.
Mhm.
If you get attacked, now what does it trigger? Because it's the wording once again. Now what? And yeah, as I said previously, I'm not the most competitive player, so I most times agree with people and just talk about it. But it's always interesting to see how others are ruling it, and I think especially with all the great minds that we have in the community, we can come to one point in this sort of document and maybe create something that makes the most sense. And yeah, we don't grab axes or daggers and stab each other into pulp to get the final answer on yes or no.
And I think that's actually the big one, which is why at this current time the Discord where this conversation is happening is in an invite-only state, and that's because if you open it up to literally everybody, you end up with the issue that there are a lot of people there who perhaps aren't necessarily insightful with the rules. But it's also not just that. You run the risk or the problem where there's actually too many people to create a ruling. There are, in time, more and more people will be added, and I'm not currently saying who can and can't be added. Ultimately, if a TO wants to be part of this, they just have to ask. The invite's already gone out to more people than are currently in the group. But it has to be on the basis that, it's not there to push a ruling. It's there to discuss a ruling and try and come to a amenable conclusion from the back of it. And there will be people on either sides. We just as a little aside from this, I haven't I think we had 10 rulings up for debate, or 10 open rulings as of earlier today. We had one more added today. And then of those 10, 5 of them have already reached a resolution, with the vast majority of TOs who are currently involved saying, yeah, that sounds about like the right kind of answer that we're looking for. Some of them incredibly easy, such as the Kingsblade and Sustained Assault, then meaning you can also play something like Reckless Strikes and Ours is the Fury as well, as an example of those things. It doesn't combine. It's not only Sustained Assault that this would affect to. It's any when a friendly unit makes a melee attack card. But yeah, the idea being is that over time that it brings these together and makes them consistent.
Maybe you should not go over one, Mickey. That there's also a major side effect of having this document and having these people together, is that it also creates bridges between different communities. And I think that's also the reason why I contacted you a couple of weeks ago, and I also I'm chatting with different other community members as well. We have to make these bridges stronger, make this game more viable for a worldwide future. As we see, CMON is doing a lot of stuff in the United States, doesn't do anything at the moment in Europe, which is understandable because they're building up after COVID and they want to pilot their infrastructure, so to say, for support and community building. But I think we can't wait on CMON to create these bridges. I think we have to do that ourselves. That's our intention as well, besides the FHQ, also with the community content and stuff. And I think this FHQ has a really strong side effect of bringing the communities on the tournament organized level together on a global scale. And maybe at the moment a little bit more on the European side, because that's something there's more need for at the moment. But it also makes bridges across the ocean. And I think that side effect should not be forgotten. So I think that's that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's interesting you talk about building bridges. It's interesting you talk about like bringing communities together, because obviously on this show we have various different guests, and I've got 3 guests today, right? And I've got 2 sets of people: Dave from Small Council Radio, Jeroen and Thijs from Rotterdam White Scars. The question is now extended to you 3. Have you 3 ever spoken with each other before?
No.
No.
No?
We have. No,
No.
we have.
No, you haven't, right? You're here today on today's show, right? You're meeting each other, you're joining together, and this isn't the only time this has happened. Many more people on Tourney Ground have met new people themselves and developed new friendships, contacts, what have you. But it's not just my show, of course. Obviously, Small Council Radio tries to do exactly the same thing over in the US, bringing loads of different guests on, and he's had. I mean, how many episodes are you on now, Dave? Do you know off the top of your head?
I want to say it's like 170.
170 episodes. There you go. So 170 episodes, and that's a lot of episodes. Yeah, definitely a round of applause. Definitely. But that means a hell of a lot of guests, right? During that time.
Yeah, whenever we can get one on, we're always, not only guests are always welcome, but even just callers. That's what we
Mhm.
do with the format the way we do, similar to like how you guys do Tourney Grounds, so that way the chat can be involved. Anyone can always call in during the show and give their thoughts on the topic. Shout outs for their their tournaments. Anytime you want to promote something that's a Song of Ice and Fire related, as long as it's not negative, as long as it's something uplifting, positive that you want to promote, anyone's welcome on. Doesn't matter if you're a super casual player, even if you just have questions. If you're a new player and you want to jump on and be like, hey, I'm new to the game and I had some questions, our show is super laid back, and we do it for all of the community, not really for just the super competitive players.
Mhm. Well, that's what it's about, isn't it? It's providing content that anyone can watch from across the world. Of course, content is always going to be somewhat time based. I'm always going to sit here and say Tourney Ground at 7 p.m. UK time is really convenient for me. I'm sorry, guys. I am not staying up till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to do something that might be really beneficial for like Western Coast America, right? Like. That's not viable for me. Vice versa, I wouldn't expect Dave to be on a show at like 9 a.m. UK time to do like a morning show with his radio. Like I'm driving to work, I get to listen to live Small Council Radio on the way in. No, that would be completely unreasonable.
Oh, we do it.
I know you do some crazy stuff, man. We have to be reasonable, but yeah, being able to share, being able to build bridges and build communities up, highlight, the various different stuff, which again is what today is about. It's most people here will know Tourney. Well, nearly every single person watching and every person watching this back will know Tourney Ground because surprise, surprise, you're here. Most people here will probably have heard of Small Council Radio, and if not, listen to a couple of episodes, if not the whole series or a good proportion of them. And a few people here, probably most people, would have heard of Rotterdam White Scars, but perhaps never really been on the channel, necessarily never really watched the videos. So it's about bringing those kind of things together and getting that sharing together, while also, just having a nice chat with each other as well, which is ultimately the win. So yeah, bringing communities, building bridges, just hopefully bringing people together. Which actually brings me on to another small note that you guys maybe have seen, and I can't for the life of me remember where my link to said thing is. Jameson Bamrick plugging the directory again. Yes, I was just about to bring that up. Have you guys seen the directory that has been making the rounds?
The directory?
I don't think so.
No? So basically, Jameson has been putting together a document, which is a directory of different play groups and different people playing the game.
I've seen that one, yeah.
Yeah, you have seen it, Fab, across the world.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah,
now
yeah.
that you're mentioning it, but I don't think I've seen it.
Okay, I've got it somewhere in my many, many, many messages. But yes, it's a directory so that different communities can essentially connect up from across the world, right? And it's crazy. It's actually crazy that so many people have already put details in, and it really is a mixture of different places. I, for the life of me, cannot find the directory link that I have. So if I just say that, Jameson will send me a message with it on, you see. I know that he'll do that.
James chat, so he might be able to share it himself.
Yeah, you can always share it in the chat if he wants to. But there's loads of people already adding their details to it. The idea being is it gives people a place to go if they want to find a community in an area, right? And we saw this. We see this with any form like this, like Tourney Ground allows it for tournaments, right? You can just go on and see, I'm going to be in this place, is there a tournament in that position? And we actually saw that in Scotland with 2 Greek guys literally turning up and playing out of nowhere on the ELO event, which was amazing. It's not the only one though, right? It's not the only one. There have been many other events where people have heard about it through Tourney Ground or through stats, or hopefully communities now which have heard through it through the grapevine. Pachow. Let it load up. So
yeah,
here we go. Look at this list already. I'm not going to zoom straight in the whole thing, but look at that. We've got Australia, we've got Canada, Poland, New Zealand. We've got the US, tons in the US, and Vietnam already through there. We've got plenty of different content creators listed on here as well, with things like Sunday Slaughter, Small Council Radio, Stats, Rotterdam White Scars, all the various other ones that are out there, Tabletop Warden, you know. There is a Google map with all these places on it as well. But there's also contact details, people that you can contact for these different groups should you want to visit, right? If you want to put your community on this list, by all means, just add yourselves to the list, guys. It is going to be a great thing. I think we're all... Are you already on it? There's a question. I don't see any entry for the Netherlands.
I think we should do that still.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're going to do that right away. So
Now, here's a question. What is your gaming group technically called, Dave? Ah, you're on there, right? Illinois, Mount Prospect. I see you, Games Plus. Yeah, I see it there. So, Dave's on there, which is good to see. Loads and loads of other places are on there as well. The US has had a really good turnout, actually. So yeah, other countries, get your acting gear, get yourself added to this list, right? The idea in the long run is it should be beneficial. Bringing together communities, bringing people together on the whole, positive stuff. Links in chat if you want to access that. So, that's a hell of a lot on communities, but now we get to talk about the community content creators themselves, right? We already know your favorite factions, we already know what your channel names are, but I want you to tell me what it's like being a creator of content, and how did you get into it? And it seems really late in the day to ask this question, but there is a method to my madness. So let's go to Dave. Dave, unmute yourself. Tell us, how did you get into doing the radio show?
It started with I wanted to do battle reports actually.
Okay.
I had bought all the equipment. Well, I'd say all, but maybe a couple of the more complex type tripods, like the overhead stuff, and I even bought like the software to edit everything. I just never had time to learn how to do the editing part. And then I had reached out to Chase from On the Table Gaming, and I'm like, hey, I know that you're putting up some content. I was like, I'd love to just, if you want just some free content, and all you got to do is edit it, you can just have it for free. You can post it and take credit for it. I don't care. I just want to help out the community. He said his plate was kind of full at the time, which I completely believe that. He he had a lot going at the time for Ice and Fire, because this is back, I want to say late 2019, if I'm not mistaken, or mid 2019. So, I was like, well, I still want to make content. I still want to do something to help the community. So I was thinking of ways that I could, and I had remembered one of the games I had played previously was Dragon Ball Z, the card game made by Panini, and they I was I was like a co-host for Dragon Ball Radio on Blog Talk Radio. So it was a group of us, and we did one show every week, and it was, that I was like, that'd be amazing. That'd be exactly what I wanted. And kind of the one of the upsides to doing it on Blog Talk, even though I do have to pay for the service every year, is that it's super user friendly, in the sense that I literally just type in the details of the show, set it for when I want it to start, log on, fit anywhere between 5 to 15 minutes before, send out the links, and then it starts. I press stop when I'm done, and it auto uploads to, like, I think we're on like 9 different places that you can listen to the show now. But
That's nuts.
There's almost no like effort, I should say, into it, other than needing to find the time and sit down and do it. And that was kind of one of the draws. So even though I might have to pay for it every year, that's kind of the trade-off. Whereas some of the other stuff requires a lot more, either editing or just stuff like that. So that, and when we first started it up, we weren't sure what to call it. I know it's technically not radio, but it's kind of a callback to the Dragon Ball Radio. That, and anyone who's kind of listened to our show, it kind of has more of a radio feel to it, the way it sounds, and kind of like the audio to it, almost like you're hearing it over your radio. So that's kind of how it started. It was actually Justin, who's still plays from time to time. He doesn't really have time for the show, but Justin from Small Counts Radio, he was actually the one that kind of came up with the name, because we're tossing things back and forth, and we're like, at the time when we first started it, there was, I think, 5 of us, and we're like, you know what, we'll call it the Small Council Radio. And in our like group chat, we gave each other, the names of all the different council members, like Hand of the King, Master of Laws, and stuff like that. And we just kind of went with it from there.
That's cool. That's really cool. I love how you stuck with the theme as well, and held on to that theme and just went, this is what we're going to do. We're going to nail it. And it works quite well. So you mentioned the show obviously being on tons of platforms now. Obviously, I always listen to you through Blog Talk Radio myself, just because I can listen live if those times when I am actually awake, when the show goes live. 2 hours long, right? Normally is the normal episode length.
Yeah, it's Blog Talk. The one downside to it is it does, based on whatever you pay for, it limits the amount of time an episode can be and what times you're allowed to even upload. I do have one of the more expensive ones, so which is why we can pretty much do a show any time of day. We're not restricted in that sense. But as far as the length of the episode, we're limited to 2 hours, which is why anyone that's listening, if you've ever heard me kind of rush at the end, it's because it's like on my end, I can hear a lady's like, you have 60 seconds. And I'm like, oh, crap. All right, rush through it. All right, hit the button. All right. Thanks for listening. So
that's nuts. I had no idea that was an actual thing. So
yeah.
No, that's that is crazy. I understand now. That makes a lot of sense. All right then. So, before we move on to the other guys, you mentioned battle reports, which is interesting. What is your... So obviously I've listened to a lot of the episodes you do, talking about events, talking about just different things, whatever it might be, guides, whatever. What is your favourite type of thing to actually make as a creator?
Like favorite type of content?
Yeah. So if you were to say if you had a favourite piece or a favourite episode or just a favourite thing to talk about.
I think I've mentioned it once before on the show, but my absolute favorite show I think would be Gaming Etiquette with Brian from Big Top Gaming. He came on, and I think we did another show with him, and we kind of we did trappings of meta mentality. So I would say those two are really high up there. With my two favorite episodes ever. Gaming Etiquette, you'd be surprised, like some of the small things that will completely stop arguments from happening if you just kind of like talk about it before the game starts. And most people may think those small things are not a big issue and you shouldn't have to, like, it's common sense, but a lot of things aren't always common sense to a lot of people. So, and just to avoid arguments, you should really, even if it's common sense to you, you should really just kind of be like, hey, like this last at AdeptCon, I only did it for the main event, but I was like, hey, right when it started, I was like, what do you guys, or what do you consider cocked? What would you like to reroll? I was like, I really don't care what we do, whatever you like, we can do. I just want to know what we're going to do throughout the game and stuff like that, So that was definitely a great episode. And then just the trappings of meta mentality, because sometimes you can kind of get stuck in a loop. You can kind of get stuck in the same, you make like 10 lists for your faction. And it's like, oh man, they all look identical. So.
Yeah. I have to admit, in the run-up to the Teams event that's running online, I had exactly that same problem where I was making lists of factions and I was like, I'm just going to make this list. That's exactly the same as this other list that I made. And didn't even realize it. Literally it's exactly the same. So yeah, there is a little bit of that. And then forcing yourself to play like, right, I know this theory is good theory, so I'm going to stick with this theory and I'm going to build a list with this theory in mind. You look at the list afterwards and go, God, that looks like jack shit. And you go, but the theory was sound. Stick with the theory. So yeah, I've made some terrible lists recently where I am going to play them. God, I entered one of them into an event. And I'm going to play it. And the theory is sound, even if the list might be jank. So we'll see. Okay, well there you go. Trappers of meta mentality and gaming etiquette with Brian Kerr from Big Top Gaming as a guest, who is a lovely guy, by the way. I've never had the pleasure to speak to him for long periods, but his content and he as a person always comes across really well. So do check out his stuff. He comes and goes. He comes in waves. He'll do some content and then he'll stop, and then he'll do a load more content like real quick, and then he'll stop. So go check out his last stuff. Right then, meta mentality and gaming etiquette. Joren, you're sat with not just a very handsome guy, but I'm led to believe a very nice guy in Thijs.
True.
Do you have to follow some gaming etiquette with him? Is he actually a dirty cheater over the board?
Well, I think, to be honest, to answer that question, you should look our last year or so. I think in my old house we did one video together, playing the classic Lannisters and Starks, and well, there you saw how Thijs is reacting on the table actually against me.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't care if I lose or win. It's such a different game for me. We also had, just to give some context, we usually don't play each other, but we both play let's say Middle Earth, we both play on an international level quite competitive.
Mhm.
So at the last World Championship, we were both captains of Team 1 and Team 2, and you couldn't face your own team. We actually faced off in the 6th round of the World Championship on table number 4.
Wow.
Against each other, and we were just, I don't want to play you, I don't want to play you, I don't want to play you, I don't want to play you. I would have to play because we were actually in a restricted area. It was a 260 player event.
Mhm.
Games Workshop itself, and we don't want to play each other, and them to proper etiquette. Oh, you go first, you go first, you go first, you go first. So it's not a good thing if we play. We only play casual with each other.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's our channel.
It is.
Yeah.
It is a channel.
Well, I think to follow that up, I think for us, and I already saw it in chat as well, we're lately quite diverse in the battle reports, and that's due to the fact, of course, as I said at the start of the broadcast, I traveled quite a lot. So I've got we currently have a backlog of at least 10 videos from really narrative gaming, aspect of really competitive gaming. But also a really good showcase that even on the higher tables, so what you will see probably in the future as well. I kind of did okay-ish in the Scottish GT as well, and I played against a lot of cool players out there that even if it's on one of the higher tables, it can be still really lovely on the tables. And I think that's one of our biggest things that we always want to showcase in our battle reports, is that you can always have fun at the table, no matter if it goes completely wrong. I think you saw that in one of the last ones we uploaded. I got completely, it was a Mortadish walkover, how and what. But yeah, I really love doing this. I think we do it now for 8 years, and now the last 3 years I do it together with Thijs, how and what. I also did it with other Rotterdam White Scar volunteers in the past as well.
Mhm.
And we want to get that bar higher and higher every time we do it. So we do it especially for Song lately now quite a lot, to get content out there for the narrative gamer, the casual gamer, for the competitive player, which I think currently resolves really well.
Yeah.
We're really happy with this.
I think it's most important to note that, first of all, I didn't know we would meet Dave, and I've listened to 3 episodes on my flight back to the Netherlands from Small Council Radio for the first time.
There you go.
It was totally not planned, but I listened to your last Adepticon review stuff, and it was great. Just to give you a little shout out there, because it was quite unexpected to see you in person as well now. So
Thank you.
we are a community channel, so that means Jeroen and I are just facilitators for the Rotterdam community to get games in front of our camera. So we do play 40k, Age of Sigmar, Middle Earth, Star Wars Legion, but you don't see a lot of comments from these people because they don't show up before the camera. The community doesn't show up, and that's fine with us. Then we just do our other stuff. So it isn't like we've chosen to be a mainly Song channel, but it's that community from Song just likes to do battle reports more than the other communities. Just to point it out. So hey, why aren't you? We asked in the community, but nobody's showing up. So that's fine. We just schedule another appointment in our studio, which is a room.
It's actually behind me in my house, but yeah.
And I think that our main goal was, I have quite a passion for videography, and also for graphic design, and I like to make a little brand and build that because I really enjoy that. Jeroen is more of the editing guy and also more of the player guy. And you see, he does more of the editing for Song. I do more of the editing for Middle Earth, Age of Sigmar, and Star Wars Legion.
Mm-hmm.
So I do the other stuff. Jeroen does the majority, but it's more the same. So I have to switch more between different formats and stuff. And we have always been very good in splitting up the job, so we don't do the same job twice. Mm-hmm. So I do, for example, more of the thumbnails and also the graphic interface and stuff, the Photoshop. and Jeroen does editing and also make sure people are invited and gets people in as a promoter, so to say.
Yeah. Having a great time and everyone. But
we're also testing, like for now, just to give you a little insight, we on Thursday is the best time for our viewers to launch a new video. Now decide, because we have so much Song of Ice Fire content also in our backlog, that we're gonna keep the Thursday for song only. So Song of Ice Fire will be only on Thursday, every Thursday now. Our goal is to do 40 reports this year, and we already have 25, including our backlog, ready.
Wow!
So I think that's more than enough to reach the 40 battle report goal this year. So that's why we've also chosen. So that's also a surprise for everybody out there, that we stick to our Thursday and we reserve that only for. We'll have another slot on Sunday for other stuff, because we don't want to swap. We also have some Middle Earth and Age of Sigmar content in our backlog. We don't want to swap. Okay, now we have now we have to wait another week. We had to use the time slot for a different game system. That doesn't really work if you see our recent posts. It's just Song of Ice Fire, Song of Ice Fire.
Yeah.
We already have four battle reports in the new version, so the season 2.
Yeah.
And what Jeroen said, another 10 already in season 2. So we're way ahead of schedule at the moment. So it's no problem at all to reach the Thursday for our Song of Ice Fire community. And they earned it, I think, because they've been showing up quite good.
Yeah. You get. If I can say so for a moment, Mickey, I want to thank everyone that's also in the chat for that. You guys gave us so much love over the last few months, and I think that's why Thijs and I decided to keep Song of Ice Fire on a Thursday, because we also just enjoy playing the game casually, competitively. It's also the reason why I started to travel abroad quite a lot as well. Met a lot of amazing people just over Discord, explaining like, hey, we've got an amazing community over here. Get your ass over here to get some games in, and everyone. And they giving invitations and what. And I truly enjoy that. I think also what Dave mentioned as well for the narrative aspect. Give them also a small teaser on what?
Yeah, you mentioned Boardman Gaming. I've been contacting gaming over the couple past weeks, and we will also do a narrative campaign. We had a pilot episode. That's the one below. Yeah, that one. It was a pilot version of the Green Fork. It was just a battle report, nothing special about it when it comes to scenario and stuff. Little tweaks because we have more terrain as usual. But that's something I'll be working on, and we'll be actually using Boardman gaming scenarios for the campaign of King Rob to start off, and that will not be on a regular schedule. There will be an extra episode on the Sundays, so it will be separate from the normal battle reports.
So
we'll also do.
Am I right in saying here that people are going to get potentially 2 episodes a week? Some weeks.
Yes,
amazing.
Yeah, because we're going to do the narrative campaign on the Sundays and not on the Thursdays, because we have so much. We have so much stuff, Mickey. It's like we can actually do this, and Jeroen and I are both skilled in editing, so we also don't have to. And it's very doable at the moment. So why not do it?
Yeah, and I think also to give another teaser out there as well. I think a lot of people in the community, and maybe a few in chat as well, ask about like, I would actually love to see a video that explains to me how this amazing game works. So like, and how to play one. And I think Simon tried it once, and as I said, we enjoy doing this kind of stuff. So I'm currently now working with, you see in our battle reports quite a lot, Neil helping us out, but also Raymond, our friendly giant, and everyone who's like the most friendliest giant there can be. But they're gonna help me out with making a video on how to play Song of Ice and Fire with the current update and what, and we would like to try that one, to update that one for each gaming update that is coming over the next few years from Simon as well, so that everyone that's new into the game can just go and watch that video and, well, get a nice taste on how amazing the game is.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's really awesome. I'm getting quite excited, might be the right word. Don't really know what the right word is, because I'm thinking in my head, right, I'm going to have to start with the best, of course. Monday night, Tourney ground. Best content there is. Don't know anyone else's opinion, not relevant. No, like literally, like game, like day, like Monday you've got Tourney ground, obviously. Then you have Tuesdays, admittedly Tuesday nights most of the time for the UK and Europe, but it leads into Wednesdays, being things like most of the time that's Small Council Radio's day is on Tuesday night, right? So that gives me my Wednesday content, if you will. And then you go into Thursdays, which will be you guys now releasing these battle reports for Thursdays.
On Wednesdays, Mickey.
Live
streaming. Dead Metal
Gaming, yeah, on an evening. I forgot about Dead Meta streams, which I tend to do watch. So you got Dead Meta streaming their stuff as well on Wednesdays. You guys on Thursdays with your now dedicated day for a Song of Ice and Fire. I don't really care about Fridays, not gonna lie. I don't really care about people creating content on a Fridays myself, but that's because I actually game on a Friday night, so I'm not gonna watch people's content. No offense. And then Saturday, Sunday, it's like the weekend. You're away at events, is doing other things. But maybe Sunday night you might want to catch up on something. Be the odd episode of the other episodes from Small Council Radio coming out. You'll have your guys' other episodes on Sundays as well. It's a veritable feast of content coming out now, and that's just from 4 creators there mentioned. Never mind Sunday Slaughter's battle reports coming out, which I'm assuming will be Sundays still. Never mind some of the other stuff we've seen from Warp Charge Gaming more recently, among others. Right? It's fantastic.
Imperial Minis also. Mickey,
Randall.
That's some good quality from abroad as well. So and
La Barre Theo in French, but there's good translation underneath, and the vibes are always good. Yeah, you have quite some content creators at the moment. I think, it's quite cool to see us 3 together like this. It's also, it feels like, it's a good thing to also see more communication between different content creators. I know we've been talking to Sunday Slaughter about certain stuff, and also with Labar Theo, but also with Chase from On the Table Gaming.
Mm-hmm.
The guys in Finland as
well.
So
I think the connection between different content creators also grows at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also exciting to see Sunday Slaughter also being supported by Kumi or not, and I also hope that they will extend that further to our side of the world as well.
Mm-hmm.
But from all of us guys, keep giving that love to not only us but to every community creator and towards the guys from Tourney Ground to Dave from Small Council Radio to the Sunday Slaughter crew, to everyone, because I think, especially as a content creator, there's nothing better than getting comments on your videos telling you that you are doing an amazing job and that they enjoy watching it. That's I think we had a few of these reactions in the last few days, and that was for me and Thijs mate, this is where we do it for. Not just for us, but I think for the community, give it out there as well. That's our main goal. So yeah.
Also, one thing, it's always better than having those timestamps. In minute 48 seconds 35, you did this wrong. Then you have to. I always underneath my battle report, because I always go, really, thank you very much. This was a narrative game. I don't care. Well, I care that you invested into the content, but I don't really mind. have me pointing out which second I made which mistake. But,
Don't worry, they also do it still with me.
Yeah.
So and it's getting, but at least we care about it, and I think that's amazing. And we we do it for you guys. So.
Cool. Well, thank you. I just seen in chat a super chat, as I think they're called in YouTube. I don't know what they're called. Joey with $49.99, which is nuts. Saying thank you for putting out such enjoyable content full of quality guests, honest insights, and interesting hobby discussion. Love the deep dive videos, Mickey. I love the content; it's very rare. Always look forward to your stuff. Well, I appreciate that, Joey. And as Daniel says in chat there as well. Joey's the MVP. I also find it very funny as well. We've also got Philippe, who's one of the guys from Labara TO in chat. We've got, you mentioned Joska, who is, I believe that's Magyar Khan. You mentioned him earlier today. You've got Sunday Slaughter turned up and went, hey, when you started mentioning Sunday Slaughter, which is fantastic as well. Carly, obviously the Iron Forest. If you haven't read Carly's articles on FLG, do so. You're great. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the community as a whole is very strong. I think it's a very great community. Now, not just from my perspective as a person and as a player, but also from the people that we see who contribute consistently to putting out good content. And again, thanks, Chris from Sunday Slaughter for $10 there as well, going towards Carlo's cash fund. I do find it very funny, right? I find it incredibly funny. When people donate, because not many people donate, and I'm not asking people to. Really, don't feel like you need to at all, guys. But I find it super, super funny because me and Carlo obviously don't monetize the show at all. Got no interest in doing that kind of stuff. And whenever anything comes in, Carlo literally looks at it and goes, "Ha! There's some more stuff." And then he also then responds with, "I should probably do something." So I like it when people do it, not because. Honestly, one penny is enough to make Carlo go, God damn it, I need to do something. But no, he's actually working incredibly hard at the moment with rebuilds of the site, and among other things, which is all going to come down the line. And if you are a patron to Stats, you may have seen that fancy stuff already. So there's a reason to be a patron. You get to be part of the testing crew. Anyway, we've spoken loads about different types of content, right? I'm going to have to be picky now, and I'm going to go back to Dave here. And Dave did say that he liked certain couple of episodes that he'd made as his favourite piece of content he made. I am now going to have to ask him, what's his favourite piece of content that he's ever watched for A Song of Ice and Fire? Not your own.
Oh, not my own? I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, it's easily my own episodes. They're great.
Yeah, I mean, when I run out of content, I just put my own content on loop, especially ones where I talk a lot.
Honesty is the best thing to do.
Good job, Dave.
I would say. What was that?
Carlo's in chat there. Look at him. See?
I'd say it's putting all content in one box is a little hard to pick something, so I'll have to give out two different favorites, and that would be Chris from Sunday Slaughter. I absolutely love his battle reports. So I'd have to shout out that, and then the only consistent podcast, or I'll call it a podcast, I don't know what you'd call it, is your guys's at Tourney Grounds. I do a lot of driving at work, and so definitely listening in it definitely gives me some more content to listen to. So I listen to a lot of different stuff, but as far as gaming, it's starting to pick up more and more now, which is awesome. But the amount of Ice and Fire content, especially when I don't listen to my own, so is it's hard to get to kind of scratch that itch. So I definitely I look forward to it every Monday.
Mhm.
Because
That's cool.
I'm pretty fortunate. I only work Mondays and Thursdays, so it definitely helps to have a consistent episode every single Monday shift.
Mhm. Well, I appreciate that a lot. And the £10 or the $50 from Joey is in the post to you, Dave, for saying that you love it so much. Same question. I mean, Joran, Thijs, you can pick different ones. You can have completely different opinions. What are yours? What's your favorite content out there?
Yeah, I think for me, honestly, just like with Dave, there are currently quite a lot of awesome content out there.
Mhm.
Again, I'm doing it more out of a casual perspective instead of the more competitive side. But I also, yeah, I think also a bit with the being a content creator yourself, you always look into like, okay, what can I do to be even better or being perfection on what, and how can you turn it into something yourself?
Mhm.
And especially with everyone putting out stuff like, as I mentioned before, Imperial Minis, Labartio, but the Sunday Slaughter crew.
Mhm.
It's all fantastic, and yeah, Thijs mentioned before during this broadcast is like Tourney grounds for me always something I have on, even if I'm not at home, if I'm in the gym or anywhere else. I just put it on there because I want to know what's going on in the community and what. And it's always interesting every week with a different subject as well, which I really really like. So that's definitely one on top there. But yeah, I think all the other guys, what they're currently doing, if it's a live stream from Sunday Slaughter right now or the Death Meta Gaming guy,
Mhm.
I always watch that quite a lot as well on the Wednesday because I absolutely enjoy having some banter with the guys over there. But yeah, also from the other guys, and yeah, I truly appreciate everything. So please, guys, keep doing it. I'm watching most of the stuff, and I truly love it. So yeah.
Awesome. Thijs, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I do, because there are two things, because everything's already mentioned, right? So I can go to Tourney Ground, well, Small Council Radio, because I've listened 4 episodes this week. So but also Sunday Slaughter and stuff. But there was one thing that I really enjoyed watching. There was the Road to Marine from, what his name?
Three Sales, Yecats.
Gaming.
No, it was Big Top Gaming. I think.
Oh, was it Big Tops did the Road to Marine, was it?
Elephant.
Yeah, I think Big Top did the Road to Marine, I think. Oh god, that's going into the memory banks, isn't it?
Yeah, but it was never finished, and I was really into that Road to Marine content because it created something like the narrative that I like, and also the hobby aspect. And I was hoping that there will be some special scenarios coming in as well. It was like an entire series that you would binge watch with 10 episodes and stuff. And it wasn't. I think I'm not saying we've lost content creators because they're not dead or they're doing anything, but we did lose a lot of consistent content over the past year and a half, I think. And that really makes me a bit sad, and it also made us push more to be more consistent instead of yeah, that also for 2023. That's why we also have the goal for the battery report, because we're also missing the other guys, and we hope to reignite that spark for other content creators as well, and not necessarily like trump them or something, but more like, hey, there's still an audience for this stuff. Please continue with it, because we're missing a couple big names at the moment, to be honest.
We are definitely small announcement is probably the wrong word, but small note on that. Three Sales Gaming, with a lot of the content that he was making, is now effectively left A Song of Ice and Fire. Is focusing on his own things, so there won't be any more content coming from him. But Grant and Brett, I believe, are carrying on the Yecats side. And so Grant will be coming out with some more content in the future, I believe. So do watch out for Yikat's miniatures. And yeah, Carlo also mentions that Between Two Weirwoods is coming back soon. So Gamma with Between Two Weirwoods, which were fantastic episodes. I'll be honest with you, I do not listen to or watch a lot of content from a lot of people, purely because there's so much. Much stuff that I never caught up with it. And if it's not live, I tend not to bother too much. Because most of the time I'm just doing other things, so I'll stick it on in the background. Like Dead Metagaming for me is the main one, just because I can stick it on a Wednesday while I'm doing something else, and I can listen to it, watch it. It's live, cool, awesome, and then I can crack on. But I don't watch a lot of recorded stuff as much as I once did, because I don't have the time, which is unfortunate. But yeah, so I'll tend to listen to the first couple of. Usually the first hour of Small Council Radio, for example, and then it's like, I'm going to have to go to bed now. So I stop, obviously. But yeah, there's so much stuff out there.
You can only take so much of Brett, right?
Well, that too.
An hour of Brett is about the max dose for some people.
Yeah, well, some say it's less. But yeah, no, there's so much stuff there. And yeah, it's good to see that there's accessible stuff that's now coming out regularly. All right, so we've got this far. We've seen some painted miniatures, right? But we haven't given out any ratings. So we've got some painted miniatures to start ourselves off. We've got a 1-1 who's gone for the blue aesthetic on the Giants, which is always interesting to see. Yeah. You got some Raiders alongside that as well. And I believe I've got one more shot of. Oh, look at this! See, I'm biased. I'm biased. Obviously, it's free folk stuff, so it's amazing. But I'm really biased against them. I hate. I don't know what it is. I hate the Mag the Mighty pose that he comes with like this. I just hate it so much. But if I'm rating it. Carlo's on 4% battery, which doesn't mean you're getting a 4 out of 10. These are solid zeros for these this free folk. Good quality basing. Love the basing. Consistency. Yeah.
Solid 0.
Solid 0. Now, we didn't show these earlier. Right? Martells. Okay. Now. Look at that. Let's bring O'Brien into shot.
That's a way to get the most value out of your unit box. That feels like warm unit fairs all over again.
Is that? Did you really only use 4 they're the skirmishers, right? 4 skirmishers, Dave, for a unit of 12.
Yeah, so you have a unit, you 3 units of.
So
yeah,
you've
it's
got
a bunch of red vipers instead of dogs.
Oh, is that
the bastard girls?
Is it bastard girls?
Yeah.
Oh, amazing! I didn't twig. That's fantastic.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. Instead of the dogs, you have snakes. Nice, lovely.
And that's why I chose the skirmishers, because I didn't want to run the 4 bastard girls, human model bowman models. I figured the skirmishers kind of fit that aesthetic in the same way.
Makes sense. Yeah.
I like it. I think it's cool. Oberyn on tactical rock as well, or tactical dragon skull. So that's a 0 through and through. Tactical rock, big fat 0. Yeah, no, I love that. I absolutely love that. I love the basing, and I really like the idea behind the snakes.
Well, it's Oberyn, so I had to do like the grandiose, over the top, and it's not that he slayed a dragon, but it is it's Martells, unbowed, unbent, unbroken. So like I have a display that I took to Adepticon where there's this huge dragon head. It's probably the size of the tray, and it's just kind of to represent like the dragon that died. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. I'm not like the most verse in the books, but pretty sure a dragon did die in the desert, and so they couldn't go, and that was like why they had to stop fighting the Martells. Their dragons just had nowhere to go in the desert, nothing to eat, and so they couldn't use their dragons against the Martells.
That vaguely rings a bell. I can't remember exactly, but that does ring a bell. But yeah, no, that's awesome. Really like it. Really like it. And the consistency again on the bases, the choice of basing is very suitable. Right then, there are more though, and this next one, I'm not going to say who it is. We've got these up next. You probably know who it is because they're a certain faction. Stag Knights. Looking very regal, I will say. Yeah. Let's keep going through. Okay. Now, I will say this. The choice of the characters and the quality on the characters here, Melisandre, Stannis, Selyse and Shireen, and Axel, is fantastic. Across the board. I really love these. I think they're fantastic. I think they're brilliant. The fact that you can see the whites of their eyes, the darkness in the eyes, the skin, the wrinkling, like all of that kind of side stuff is really good. And not just that, nailing Shireen as well. Actually getting Shireen right, I think is really good. Let's zoom in on that Shireen there to really get her in the picture. I think that is a fantastic version of Shireen myself. And these are yours, Joran, right?
Yeah, those are mine. Yeah.
Nice.
And I think that the really cool thing is here. These are photos I made a few years ago when I finished most of the Stennis side. I'm a huge Stennis lover, so I'm most of the times playing the Stennis side. But for those out there that haven't seen my armies, I'm also painting them in the traditional colors. So like Stennis with the yellow and the black tones on there. There are lore units with some black and red in there as well. But if you go to the Renly side and everything has like bluish, and also the green. So especially if you got my warden units next to them and everything, you can see it here on Renly, for example. There's a lot of differences between that, and I absolutely enjoy that in the faction. That's one of the things why next outside the books and everything, it's truly amazing to see these alliances that you can make with the faction. But also having like the two wardens next to each other. One of them are yellow with black colors in there, and the other ones with the green bluish ones. It's always something I truly love. So.
Well, I'll say it just because I know you're waiting for it, Joran. There are some solid zeros there. On behalf of Carl.
Yeah, I made it. The true zeros. That's all I wanted, you know. Yeah.
I love how it's become a meme. It's great.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I think I'm really happy with the paint job and everything on there. But I think that's also one of our things because we love the painting so much next to the playing. I'm always happy to have someone like Thijs next to me learning me new stuff as well. So I think over the years my painting even got better, and that's due to the fact that Thijs keeps pushing me like, "Oh, you've painted something nice.
Yeah.
Have you seen my new model?" And then it's always like this sort of contest and everything. I can almost never win it though. So, but
I'm a douchebag when it comes to painting.
Oh yeah.
Especially you between us. And he will show a model. I'm like, yeah, you made a mistake there.
Yeah.
And then, but you like the model. Yeah, but you made a mistake there. And that's not because I don't. You know, when you have a relationship between two friends, that you know how far you can go. We can go really far when it comes to feedback on painted miniatures. So whatever we show to each other, it sucks. Doesn't mean it sucks, but it's like it's not like banter. It's actually criticism to like positive criticism. It's always in a way like, if you tried it this way or that way, and that's always it's always something that's really strong within our local community as well. We have a lot of people going to Golden Demon, for example, while getting finalist pins, and
That's awesome.
The painting standard is always within every gaming system. It doesn't matter. The painting standard has always been very high, and if you go to a tournament, there's no best painted award, people will not show up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think best painted is a massive thing. Yeah.
And that's also something when I went to the UK for the first armies like Chris or the other ones, I'm like, okay, I think I'm actually quite a painter, but I'm getting smacked here, like even in a reach or anything like it. But there, and I think this also suits really well with the theme of the broadcast. When I went to those tournaments, everyone had like something nice to say, but what I said as well, I'm always interested, like, okay, guys, but what should I or could I do differently with other factions? And in this point, the community also shines quite well. So I got a few really good points in Scotland as well, and I'm well, something differently on some of the other ones. So finally picked up the really cool Rainbow Guard, how and what, and I'm gonna challenge myself to get them as good as possible in the way how Chris, for example, does Rainbow with the Warrior Sons.
The Warrior Sons, oh man, replicating those Warrior Sons, rock hard. We'll move on to then the biggest critic, Thijs being the biggest critic of Euron here. Now, Dave, if you've not seen these, you're going to enjoy this. Look at those sexy, sexy boys.
I think I'm on. I'm watching on my phone, so I think I'm gonna 10-second delay. So
I'll let you catch up.
Give me like 10 seconds. Yeah.
You'll need 10 seconds after that to be like, whoa, okay.
Yeah. I'll just sit here like for 5 minutes, just like pretending not to see them.
Those are some very nice Crowdman trackers.
Thank you.
I like those a lot.
I love the leaves.
Yes. Yeah. The addition of the leaves on the base, which is something that my clubmate Dan does a lot on his Starks. It does actually go a long way. I think it really... It seems unimportant. You wouldn't need them for it to be completed, but it actually does add that pop of you just taking it to that next level. These are really... I mean, Carly in chat, they're saying they remind you of Faramir's Rangers. Yeah, these are lovely. And I can definitely imagine if you are a Middle-earth player, which you said you were, that you were probably somewhat inspired by Faramir's Rangers when you saw these.
Yeah, I think the cool thing, the models are shit. Just to be honest. That's just because they were the first run from Simon, right? So they're one of the first. Yeah, the models are really hard to pull off when you compare them to newer sculpts and stuff. So I was really happy with them, and because they were so, you only have 3 poses instead of 4. So I had to make a whole color scheme. Okay, this one gets a green cloak, this one gets a brown cloak, this one gets a yellowish cloak, and then I actually made a whole scheme on what I had to do to make them all different, and they're all different at the moment. So that really was very nice. And actually, I didn't want to do the leaves from an entire Stark army because I wanted to do these like they're in the forest and the rest is on the. And now I have them. The other Starks are exactly the same basing, maybe a little bit less stuffed. And now I'm like, yeah, I need to do the leaves on my entire army now because this one stands out so much compared to the rest. But I had to do leaf by leaf by leaf by leaf. So I'm not sure I want to do that, but I have to now.
That's what he's doing right now.
Literally on the painting deck. Wow. It's create work for yourself. That's what you've done. You just created work for yourself. It's your own fault.
Yeah,
just don't make strong zeros like this. There you go. There's your rating. Don't make strong zeros like this, and then try and like hide it in your own army, right? That becomes the new standard. And it's like, damn it.
It was really stupid because also without the leaves, they're perfectly fine. Now I have an entire army with leaves. So
Oh, it'll be worth it in the end. I've also got some of the other things you've been working on here as well, so I can see some Martell banners, which I'll be honest with you, I have not seen these at all anywhere in the flesh, so it's cool to see these, just knowing that they exist is a thing.
Hold on, not the Martell banners, right? They're car start banners.
Yeah, look at
shit,
this.
they're the car start banners. Holy shit.
Because Martell's different sigil. A sigil is like a sun with a spear in it, sun spear.
Yeah.
These aren't Martell at all. It's the completely different sigil. It's the
Yeah, these are car start. Did you make these?
No, they are actually. There's an error in the sculpt because there's no spear in the banner of the Martells.
Ah, so they are Martell banners, but
It's
are
banners, but they don't have the spear in them, so they're not. They've been sold as Martell banners, but they're car start banners. So, and I'm planning on building a car start force right now.
Mhm.
So I was like, this is perfect because they just brought out the car start banners and really weird orange plastic, but that's okay because I still have to paint it.
We just took 5 Martell banners.
You had me, you had me worried for a second. So I think with some clever painting, you could still turn it back into a Martell symbol. So I was worried before because I was waiting for it to buffer. I was like, oh no, are my banners gonna look all goofy when I finally get a set?
No.
Well,
That's cool.
This actually, I didn't change anything. Didn't sculpt it. This
No,
actually,
yeah.
so,
I just mean like if you paint the because if you look at the one going from top left to bottom right, you could probably paint it silver to represent the spear.
but
So
it's
you
not,
could probably with some clever painting kind of get around it. But I see what you're saying. Like at face value, yeah, that it doesn't look like the Martell symbol.
There we go. See, where would I be without my guests? I wouldn't have had a bloody clue. I'd have just been like, it's Martell. Oh, no, it's not. It's Carstock. Oh, no. So there you go. No, that's awesome. And I know that Joran really wanted me to show this particular piece up from you as well, Thijs. Your Crescent. You've just been finishing off. Who does look very good. Very nice.
And this was one of the examples. Like we've got one of the painting tutorials from Thijs up for painting Roose Bolton, and I got a challenge for myself to paint up like Master Crescent for Always Winter, so the Scottish GT, and he's like, well, you should challenge yourself a bit, and I started painting this one during one of the Twitch live streams from Dead Meta Gaming, and from one of the guys that's doing currently for us, like some hobby hangout and everything. But I've got facing a scratch technique to paint like a really destroyed cloak or dirty cloak, and that's repaired over time and everything. One of the older grandmeesters, or sorry, not grandmeester, maester of the house. So yeah, why not trying it out? And then at one point, he said like, "Well, you actually did okay-ish. It's not perfect, but it's okay-ish." And well, a lot of people were really enthusiastic about it because no one painted him up yet, especially not in the colors that was on the box art. And I always try to keep them as close as possible to the box art. So yeah, I was really happy to get these painted up and put them out on there to inspire other people. So, and that's why I also chose to showcase this one, because I think for this one, especially if you look to the face, this one is already a lot better than the ones I did previously. So, and that's just by, well, giving a negative feedback, right? And
positive criticism.
Positive criticism. Sorry, my bad.
No, I love it. I love the cloak. I was baffled by the detailing, obviously, on the effects on here as well. It's brilliant. It's lovely. It's lovely. And now I can do fun things like this as well, in that I can have a bald man look like he's appearing from the corner of the show. Dun dun dun. I'm watching you. So there we go.
Pop up for like, and what are we going to give for this painting? And then he slowly comes up. 0
0. I need to. Oh, you've made me want to animate that now, haven't you? Oh no. When Carlo's not here. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you very much for sending all those things in, guys. I really appreciate that. It's always good to see people painting from across the world, and you know, as much as we are, and I am a competitive gamer and hardline, must play really well all the time. Of course, what matters most is community, hobbying, and everything like that. And just in my time for my camera to start to go foggy, people say I don't paint enough. So this weekend, I have been trying to sort out my free folk, and they're all lying down at the moment because they're not glued down, but 3 lying down wolves from the wolf pack from Varamir, all due to be different colours. They'll all be stood up eventually at the end. That's what I've got currently on mine, and the shadow cats over there, Varamir's bears over there, and then we've also got the Baroque's boar, who is not finished yet, but he's going to be finished up this week as well, is the plan. 1 unit a week.
Also better, like because you've been dedicated, free focus. Also has some older sculpts compared to the newer sculpts.
Mm-hmm.
How does that compare in free focus? They are already a bit like you have to paint them up fast, and well, what Dave said, you can contrast paint quite easily. It doesn't really matter how the sculpt is, but do you notice any difference, or what's your opinion on the newer sculpts?
I think I'll answer this very simply, Thijs. This model here, Varamir, very blurry,
Yeah.
Varamir, but Varamir himself, nice model. I'd like to paint that. He's on the painting desk as we speak. The Baroque's boar, the wolves are a bit disappointing, but they're fine.
Yeah, they're natural, so that's all.
This goddamn thing, this is the shadow cat, actually painted up. I fucking hate it. It looks so shit. It honestly looks like those, you know, you go down like local stores and you can buy like a toy tiger in like I forget what they even call them, but like they're like literal plastic toy tigers you could buy off the shelves at a kid's store. It looks exactly like that when you pull it out of the packet, and I'm just like, oh. I'm not going to say I could sculpt a better shadow cat, but I do feel that there are people who could probably sculpt a better shadow cat than this.
You know what? This reminds me. I've been painting up also the new sculpts for Umber Berserkers,
Mhm.
and they are absolutely fantastic. The faces, the banner, the cloth is like really flowy. It's really, you can do a lot of nice stuff. But the fur, it's like a big mess.
Yeah.
It doesn't flow at all. It doesn't make any sense. It goes in different directions. You can't dry it. You can't layer it. It's like a mess. It's like the fur, and that's probably also with the cat. It's just a mess lately.
Like it's using the art that's often done for shadow cats. And where the problem where this actually lied when I was painting this is that there's not really any consistency. It's not really like fur, and it's almost like feathers. And on an animal like this, it doesn't really make sense. It should be much, much finer, much, much smoother. With the boar, it kind of makes sense. It's like shaggy. With the bear, the wolves, you can kind of get it. But with a cat like this, it needs to be sleeker, almost smoother, much finer hair, and it just doesn't really work very well. And it was a nightmare to paint. And to be honest, I even look at it now, and I've painted him up. I look at it and think, I think he looks a bit crap, personally. But like, I don't care because he's done, and I don't really want to have to paint it, to be honest. So I just got it out of the way. But yeah, can't say I enjoyed it. Anyway, yeah. So that's it. We'll start to round up then. So we're gonna look at tournaments, right? We're gonna look at our tournaments now. I'm becoming this is a quite common question I'm asking now. Which country is going to have the most representation this week? Dave, what do you reckon?
This is probably a horrible question for me because I don't keep up with a lot of the tournaments. So,
Take a punt, a wild stab in the dark.
anywhere in the world, you're saying?
Anywhere in the world.
This week.
This week.
Let's see. Let me go to the current ones because knowing me, I'm gonna name some random country, and it's not like they don't even have a tournament this week.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Let's go with.
Is he going to go for a safe bet, or is he going to go for a risky bet? There's a question.
It doesn't help that I only speak English and read English, so.
Take a punt. Any country in the world, just take a punt. Go for it.
All right, I'm gonna pick again if it doesn't have a tournament. I'm gonna pick Germany.
Germany. Not one I thought you'd go for. Interesting choice. Thijs, Jeroen?
I want to go for Germany as well. I have a theory about this because we are in the Easter holiday, and the Catholic countries they tend to have more days off before Easter,
Mm-hmm.
and the Protestant countries have more days off after Easter.
Okay.
That was exactly my line of thinking too.
Well,
Really? Yeah.
No.
fair enough.
You're
Jeroen.
Catholic, so
Yeah,
Germany.
yeah. I think definitely Poland or the UK. But that's
There it is.
I enjoy what the tournaments going on due to the fact that I'm most of the times intrigued on what people are bringing in the form of lists and everything. Then I'm just talking with some of the local ones with One Ring or
Mhm.
and I'm like, hey, I've seen this. What do you think about it?
You know what?
Do you think it will work? Yes or no?
I'll go for Poland. So I have a different one from Dave, but so close to Germany. You go for UK?
Yeah, I will do
Okay.
UK then.
Okay, we'll see who ends up being the closest then. We'll start off with nobody's guess. France. It's, Les 8 Royaumes the second. There was one, I can't remember when the first one was, but there was the 8 Realms previously. And this is the second one in that series, so that's in France. There's the Eingehara Fossen Brawl. That was very well pronounced by myself. In Denmark, in Aarhus. Game of Thrones Battlefield Berlin 1.4. I really hope they're not playing 1.4 version of the game. If I mean, they can be. By all means, they can be. But I really hope they're not playing 1.4. That's in Berlin, Germany. We've got the Conquest of Swindon at this weekend in Swindon, the UK. Yes, the play on words. It's terrible.
Yeah.
An event in Russia. Don't ask me to pronounce. Winter is coming in Sweden, in Karlstad. We've got an event in A Corona in Spain. That's the third tournament of organized by La Forja Wargames. We've got Carlo's first of the circuits that's happening in Wembley in the UK in London this weekend. If anyone is in the UK, specifically London or surrounding areas, do sign up for the circuit in London this weekend. First of a series of events for qualification for the Invitational that Carlo is running again this year. There's an event in Poland, of course, in Gdansk. There's the Forge April Melee in Houston, Texas. In the US, and there's Mount Prospect, Illinois, Warns of the Midwest monthly tournament for April. And US, man, you can't stray from your roots, Dave. The US turning out strong. Sacramento, California, the US for the Great Escape Games monthly event. Shanghai Fight Club, April's monthly event in Shanghai, in China. Lovely to see it. There's the TTS Song World Teams event starting this week as well. All the teams are in, 40 players across 50 players across 10 different countries, 9 different countries in UN, which is a mix, performing in an online event. Another event happening in France, in La Saval-Tat-Saint-Gilles. Cool. Another event in Sacramento, Battle of the Beach 10, with the Myrtle Beach guys. 10 events in there. It's crazy. Loads. Another. That's next week. That's next week. So yeah, we'll skip over those ones. So that's. I mean, the US clear winners here, right? There was like 4 or 5 US events there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 events happening this weekend or starting up this week. Mental. Mental stuff.
Yep. This will be our first event on stats for our local.
Is that the
s-
one in Illinois for yourselves?
Yep, Mount Prospect. Yep.
Nice.
Cool.
I'm gonna have to look at it now, see who's signed up. You're not even
I
signed
have
up for
not.
your event.
Yeah, well, that's because I have a baby coming, so
Fair enough.
I might not be going.
Very reasonable. No, that's awesome. That is awesome stuff. So you've obviously got your event this weekend. I really hope that goes really well for you, Dave. Even if you don't get to play, I really hope you get good attendance. And how many people are you probably expecting to turn up?
It's so funny because we have like 25 active playing members in our surrounding area, but
Mhm.
getting them all to show up at the same time is like herding kittens. So we usually have our tournaments are usually anywhere between 6 and 14. Like it's so sporadic. Some weeks, yeah, it's like 6 of us, but then other weeks it's like, man, the problem with our shop is it's so popular that finding enough or reserving enough tables, because you actually have to reserve your tables like way in advance, in order to even have enough. So we're only down for 2 tables, which will fit 8 people as a minimum, or that's like what we're set at. If we think we're gonna have more, then we have to request another one in advance, which can complicate things sometimes. It's just our shop, Games Plus. If you're ever looking for some of the most random things, they've been around for so long that they have a stockpile of things that were created probably when my dad was young. Like
40-year-old stuff that's just like well out of print.
Oh yeah, like it's and even new stuff. I'm talking they've been around so long and done so well from themselves that they have practically anything and everything you can think of. They have so much that they actually do a biannual auction that is so popular that they have to turn away items, and it's over the course of 4 days.
Holy hell.
Yes, I'm talking huge turnout. Like they have to, for the 4 days, you're not allowed to reserve any tables at all because it takes up the entirety of their playroom. And the way it works is you just whatever it sells for, they don't take any percentage. It just becomes store credit. So if you want to sell your item for $100 and someone bids and buys it for $100, you now have $100 in store credit at Games Plus. It's a win-win for both of them because they get all of the cash, obviously, for the people that bought the item, but you then get that same equivalent to then spend in the store. But you're also not having to like pay the shop 10%, like something right off the top to sell your item in their auction. So like when 2019 Adepticon happened, Simon gave out the starter box, the Stark vs Lannister starter box to everyone that got a swag bag. Well,
That's nuts.
that following auction, there was like 12 Stark vs Lannister starter boxes, and I just bought, I think, 8 of them for $30 to $35 each.
That's nuts.
I just gave them away to beginners. Our rule, I still have like 3 Lannisters and 3 Stark halves. The rule at our shop is if you're a new player, you get entered into a raffle, and if you win the raffle, you get a Stark or Lannister starter half of your choice. And if you're the only person to show up, you just auto win. You just have to play for the day.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
So
That's that's awesome. I mean, it's fantastic to see communities pushing the game and just giving away free stuff as well, and just promoting anything. So yeah, no, I mean that's a real positive thing for Games Plus, and of course your local area as well. No wonder you have so many active players who, even if they don't show up, are willing to turn up and play every now and then, which is fantastic.
Yeah, if anyone's wanting to show up for them, they're very generous. Entry is just a $15 store purchase, so you can purchase anything in the whole store for $15 or more. And that is your entry. And then they still put in a $10 gift certificate per person. So if 10 people show up, they all spend $15 on paint, on a unit box, whatever they want. They're in, and now we have $100 of store credit. Plus, we give out the starter half to a new player, and last place automatically gets a unit box. And then we still split the $100 between just based on attendance.
That's really cool. I like the idea of turning up and buying paint and actually using that as entry as well, because the number of times where I'll nip down a local store and just need to buy some paints. But it now I can do that, but also get entry to a tournament for that. I think is fantastic.
Awesome.
I really like that. Cool. Well, what about you guys up in the Netherlands? Have you got any events coming up soon, or anything that you're planning to attend?
We actually have our event on the 23rd of April, so not this next week.
Yeah.
And we are slowly getting the community back up again. This Battle for White Harbor 6th edition.
6th.
So it's
Wow.
6th edition. Maximum 16 players. It will be played at my local scouting club. So it's and it's at the water, so it's in the middle of Rotterdam. Although you feel like you're in the middle of nature, and it's really nice. So it's all a bit. My mom and dad help out, and it's just one family gathering sort of. And then we have 16 players that play in the middle of nature, and 25 euros gets you a full day with 3 games and a very well prepared lunch and snacks as well, so like crisps and stuff. But yeah, it has been a little bit of a struggle lately because we only have one store in the Netherlands that supports that carries Song of Ice Fire. That store has 3 locations though, so that's nice. But we still struggle to get the minimum of like 10 people together every time. Although this is already the 6th time and the community is strong enough to do all the battle reports and stuff, we don't get many new players in because
I think for the thing is that actually our event right now, I think 3 or 4 people are new players though.
Yeah, that's true.
So most of our veterans, I think the same what Dave just mentioned is like if you organize a tournament, it's always hard to get everyone on the right spot.
Yeah.
And we have it all the time, unfortunately, with Battle of White Harbor, because I think if the complete community will be together, I think it can easily be 20 or even more. But now I think our biggest one was 16 players somewhat.
Yeah.
But this is a really good example that the community keeps on growing. As I said, 3 to 4 players are new players. And also we always giving some cool stuff back as well. So we also now created a cool widget as well that I found at the Scottish GT. And people were so interested into it that I had some really nice talks, and we will get stuff sorted on what. And always we have actually that in the Netherlands, if you win a bet for White Harbor or one of the games at our local gaming shop, the tournaments, the winner gets an Hand of the King pin, and to call him Your Grace at the gaming evening or at the tournament, but they can be kicked off that position to one of the other players, how and what.
So every tournament you have to defend your title, and if you don't show up, the winner automatically gets your title.
Oh, I see how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. So we already have like the banter going on, and trying to usurp how and what the other players.
No, it's
cool.
Yeah,
it's really nice, and also to what you said, Mickey. I think at the tournament right now, it's really a lot of variations on there as well. I think 6 out of the 9 factions are represented. Even one with neutrals though, so even if it's not a faction, it is there. So yeah, always see that yeah, as you mentioned, all the factions are represented at the tournament.
Yeah, and just to be honest, the fun thing is that our YouTube channel is almost entirely run on Summer of Ice Fire, but we also have a different tournament organization. So we organize about tournaments a year for different gaming types. Yeah. And we are one of the, I think, the second largest tournament organized in the Netherlands for wargaming. So
Wow.
there's one organization that also does world championships for Age of Sigmar, for example. So that's way bigger than they're actually a company. But we usually, if we do Age of Sigmar or Mayo Earth tournament, one day, we sell out 50 tickets within 3 days.
Wow.
So, and if we do a grand tournament for Middle Earth, you can easily do 100 to 120 players. And that's from the entirety of Europe and everything else. And then we do these like little baby tournaments for Song. But we're so passionate for this game. We still do it, and we are still pushing it because it's like our sweet spot, of course, with our YouTube channel, and we still want to. Like this tournament is purely for us to give back to the community as a tournament organizer, because we're not running the 50 to 100 man tournaments, and we have to really plug people together over the course of 3-4 months to get 12 players, and then we do early bird ticket sell out for Middle Earth, and there's like already 24 people signed up, and
amazing.
It's completely different, but we still want to do it. But it's more like, yeah, to be honest, it's more like a charity for the community than it's actually us growing the tournament side of our organization.
But we would love to, though. So everyone out there, if you ever want to come to the Netherlands or so, feel free to contact us and let us know if you want to see like a /Belgium GT, because that's one of the things I'm really looking into. And if I can get a lot of people excited for that, I will try doing one maybe this year already, or otherwise next year. So please let us know through any channel whatsoever, and if we get enough people, we will get it sorted for you guys.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Well, thank you very much, you guys, for joining us today. Thank you very much, Dave, and I wish you all the best. Your wife, but to be honest, not you. Your wife, all the best with the child, and of course yourself with your 5th on the way. Thank you very much, Thijs and Jeroen, for joining us. I will no doubt speak with you both much more in the near future as well. Is there any last words either of you want to say?
Well, only thing to say, thank you very much for having us, and it was really nice to meet you, Dave.
Nice to meet you guys as well.
Let's also between that make it sort of.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes, that's what you need to do.
I would love that as well.
Yeah.
For indeed the community, for giving passion tonight, but also all the previous videos as well. We truly see that and love it all. So thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, guys, for turning up. All the best in your games this weekend, and all the best to the guys out there as well, playing games in just events or just down the local store or whatever it is that you might be doing. Have a great second half of Easter week, holiday, whatever, if people are on holiday still, and enjoy your games, and we will see you next week. Take it easy, guys.
Ready? Aim!
There's too many!
Anyone see my mammoth?
Stubby!